Sorry po, ma'am. Sorry po.
It's okay. Okay. Si Mark na. Okay. Mark? Or si Sigford?
Sige po, ma'am.
Okay.
Ah, Start na po. Make sign of the cross, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, come before you today with humble hearts, seeking your guidance and wisdom as we begin this review session for the Environmental Planner Licensure Examination. We thank you for the opportunity to learn, to grow, and to prepare ourselves for the responsibilities that come with us with this profession. Lord, grant us clarity of mind to understand complex concepts, patience to persevere through challenges, and strength to remain focused and diligent in our studies. May our efforts be fruitful, and may we use this knowledge not just to pass the exam, but to serve our communities with integrity, wisdom, and purpose. This we ask through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Sigford. So, before we go to the TOS, I think we're now on area 3. But I would like to bring back again the concept of regional planning for mastery purposes. Okay. So, I think it's a really difficult subject because it's something complex. It's a combination actually of theories involved there. So let me bring back regional planning, and so you can go to the next slide. We need to understand everything there before we proceed to plan implementation. So how do I understand regions in regional planning context? First, we need to define a region. So a region in urban and regional planning refers to a spatial unit, okay, space, composed of a central place, meaning the urban core, and its surrounding territory. So it's something like central place plus surrounding territories. So they they are supposed to be functionally integrated in terms of economic activities, infrastructure, and governance. So the integration of these areas is driven by both economic and infrastructure linkages, ensuring that urban centers and rural areas develop in a balanced and sustainable manner. Now, you can see there what's economic linkages. So economic linkages define, okay, the extent of interdependence between urban and rural areas. And these linkages include number one, urban influence on non-urban areas. So what are these? Like commuter journeys from suburban or rural areas to employment centers in cities where there's a kind of magnet in the cities, and why people from suburban and rural areas seek greener pasture in the cities. Okay. Then another one is urban dependence on rural territories for essential resources like food, water, and labor supply. So these are um, agricultural products supplied to city markets. So it's called interdependence. So it's not just urban areas that's in the center, but of course, urban also has dependency on rural territories. Another linkage is production and consumption functions, where industries, commerce, and trade connect different areas within a region. So cities act as hubs for processing, distribution, innovation, while rural areas provide raw materials and agricultural goods. So, so that's about economic linkages. And how about infrastructure linkages in regional planning? Infrastructure plays a crucial role in linking different parts of a region. Key infrastructure linkages include number one, major transport nodes. So what are these? We have highways, railways, airports, seaports. They facilitate the movement of goods, services, and people. Another linkage is utility trunks, including water purification plants, power grids, waste management systems, which ensure the smooth operation of urban and rural communities. Then there's also what we call the sink function areas, which serve as support zones for cities by housing facilities like landfills, the MRFs, and the STPs. Okay, MRF means material recovery facilities, and STP means the sewage treatment plants that manage urban waste. So we need to understand these linkages, which helps or help urban planners, policymakers develop strategies for efficient land use, sustainable growth, and also to improve resource distribution. So, yeah, we can go to the next. Okay, next slide. So, region and real space. So, there are many forms of a region, many definitions, and this time, we need to understand regions in real space, meaning functional, economic, and natural regions. And that's why it's in the table of specifications, because each year, even pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, they're still being asked in the board exams. All right. So if you master this, then you're assured of significant points in your board exam rating. So a region in real space refers to a geographical area that exhibits functional coherence and interdependence. So it's defined based on specific criteria, which can be economic, environmental, or social in nature. So number one, we have functional region. It's characterized by a cohesive system of interactions between different areas. It's not necessarily defined by administrative boundaries, but rather by the relationship and flows of goods, services, people, and information. Examples include metropolitan areas. We also have the industrial zones or trade zones, whatever you call it, and commuter belts where different municipalities or provinces function as a single unit. And then economic region is defined by economic linkages that I've mentioned earlier, that we have exchange of goods, interflow of labor, capital investment, and industrial production. So economic regions often transcend political boundaries and may be influenced by globalization and transnational corporations. And these regions may include industrial clusters. These are areas with high concentration of industries such as automobile, electronics, or textile manufacturing zones, and many more. And we also have economic zones, or short, we also call it ecozones or special economic zones. So these are government designated areas that attract foreign and domestic investments through incentives like tax breaks, among others. Then Still under economic region is trade corridors and port cities. These are coastal and inland port regions that serve as logistical hubs for import-export industries. Then we're done with functional economic regions. Then we have natural region. A natural region refers to a geographical area characterized by interdependent ecosystems and natural communities. It's defined by climate, terrain, biodiversity, and environmental systems rather than human-made structures. So these regions play a crucial role in environmental sustainability and resource conservation. Examples include our watershed areas that provide fresh water to cities and agricultural zones. Also, another example is coastal and marine ecosystems that support fisheries and tourism. Then we also have protected forest reserves that act as carbon sinks and biodiversity sanctuaries. So we need to understand different types of regions which allow urban planners and decision makers to develop policies based on functional interactions rather than arbitrary political boundaries. Then also promote economic efficiency by promoting industrial clusters and enhancing trade linkages. And of course, I always want to include ensuring sustainable development through ecosystem-based planning and environmental protection. So we can go now, we can still, we are still continuing in the topic region and real space, but this time we have another set of uh, types of regions. We have formal and historic region in this slide. A region in real space can also be classified based on different criteria, including political, economic, historical, and geographical attributes. And the distinction between formal regions and historic regions play plays a crucial role in urban and regional planning, governance, and cultural preservation. What's a formal region? A formal region is a geographical area that exhibits uniformity in certain characteristics, making it easily identifiable and analyzable. That these regions do not show significant internal variability and are often used for administrative and analytical purposes. Formal regions can be further divided into, okay, number one, political administrative regions. These are defined by governance structures and administrative boundaries. So we have the, number one, national and state boundaries, that sovereign countries and subnational divisions such as provinces, regions, municipalities. And then we also have electoral constituencies. So what are these? These are the districts, right? Designated for elections and legislative representation. So, and then we have the LGUs comprising cities, towns, and barangays with distinct political jurisdictions. We have another type of region is urban region. It consists of large cities, metropolitan areas, and surrounding commuter zones that are economically and socially linked. So these areas are often treated as homogeneous urban environments, but in reality, they're complex cultural mosaics. Urban regions encompass, number one, core cities. They're normally called or usually called central business districts or the CBDs with high population density. Then we have suburban areas. These are commuter towns that rely on the core city for employment and services. And then we have peri-urban zones. These are transitional spaces between urban and rural environments. And please note all those types of uh, those terms under urban region. Now we moved to historic region. A historic region is an area defined by a shared cultural or historical past rather than current economic or political functions. These regions play an essential role in heritage conservation, cultural tourism, and identity formation. And examples, what do we have? We have vegan, all right? Also, we have colonial towns, right? Vegan Intramuros, and then Iloilo also as heritage district. And then under historic region, we have indigenous territories. These are ancestral lands of indigenous peoples like the Cordillera region. We also have in the province of Bukidnon, and I think there are how many tribes are in Bukidnon. And then we also have old trade routes, okay? The Manila area, so Manila, Acapulco, Galleon trade route that was from way back, right? So it's known as old trade routes. So formal regions aid in governance, service delivery, and infra planning. And urban regions also require strategic metropolitan planning to balance development and livability. And historic regions must be preserved through policies supporting heritage conservation and sustainable tourism. So we can continue to the next one. And so I hope you are understanding it deeply, all these types of regions. So we have bioregions, okay? We have bioregions and ecoregions under natural region. So a natural region refers to an area where natural elements such as ecosystems, habitats, and species are um, interdependent and interconnected. Unlike administrative or political boundaries, natural regions are defined based on environmental and ecological factors. This region, these regions play an important role in biodiversity conservation, environmental planning, and sustainable land use management. And bioregion there under natural region is an area characterized by the natural interdependence of life forms and species. It's defined by biological and ecological relationships rather than political or economic boundaries. There are key features of a bioregion. It includes diversity of species, that's number one, where uh, we can really we can identify the presence, or we learn about the presence of endemic, native, and migratory species. So what are these migratory species? So we have migratory birds, we also have fishes, right? So then flora and fauna interactions also still under bioregion. How different species, so under this, how different species coexist and depend on each other. Then we have ecological functions. Um, it processes these are processes such as pollination, predator-prey relationships, and nutrient cycles. A lot to learn, right? About taking the boards. For example, Amazon rainforest. Okay, so it's a bioregion that supports a vast number of species contributing to the global ecosystem. Then we have number two, ecoregion. It's a broader concept that includes not only biological life, but also the entire ecosystems, natural interactions. And this includes um, climate, terrain, water systems, and soil composition. It's used for environmental conservation planning. It's used also for ecosystem-based management. It's also used for climate adaptation strategies. So ecoregions are often mapped to preserve biodiversity and maintain ecosystem services. So examples include yeah, cannot think in an example in Philippines, but there's what we call the Coral Triangle. It's a globally significant marine ecoregion that spans the Philippines, Indonesia, and Malaysia. So we also have what we call the Great Plains in North America. It's a grassland ecoregion supporting diverse wildlife and agriculture. So I remember there was this article in 2024, and so it distinguishes between a bioregion and ecoregion. So please don't make a mistake about this one. And it's an article by, I think it's not by, but it's about Boracay. I think Boracay. It's about that, and I I saw it was this. I saw in that article that it was described like mm, ecoregion, but I think it should be bioregion. So I'll try to come back to you when I come across this article again. And wherein I corrected that, not uh not correcting the article, but discussing it with some of my students also, that it's not supposed to be ecoregion or bioregion or vice versa, because they are it has its uh it was properly, both of these were properly defined here. So you should know what's a bioregion, and that you should know what's an ecoregion, that it's a broader concept actually. So when you write articles, and we should not make a mistake about classifying them, which type of region was that you're writing. Okay. So um we can go to the next one, region in virtual space. So virtual region. So Um, this slides were prepared during the pre-pandemic time, and so but after it became more relevant after the after our COVID-19 pandemic. So because virtual region now is has become uh equally important in the non-virtual, like environment. So virtual region, it's a concept in digital connectivity and economic networks. A virtual region refers to a network of functionally related areas that are not necessarily contiguous or geographically proximate, but are highly interconnected through information and communication technology, or the ICT, and economic interactions. Unlike traditional regions, which are defined by physical proximity, virtual regions are formed based on digital connectivity, shared economic interest, and functional relationships across different locations. So one of the most prominent examples of a virtual region is the network economy, where businesses and organizations operate in a distributed manner across multiple locations but remain seamlessly connected through digital platforms and ICT infrastructure. The rise of the internet, cloud computing, and digital transactions has enabled small firms, multinational corporations, or the MNCs, and even freelancers to collaborate and conduct business globally without the need for physical proximity. For instance, Silicon Valley, and also in the US, so we have Silicon Valley in the US, and also Silicon Valley and Bangalore in India. They're physically separate, but their strong connectivity through outsourcing digital services and ICT-based collaborations creates a virtual regional link between them. Similarly, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the gig economy where workers from different parts of the world provide remote services through platforms like Upwork, and we're familiar with LinkedIn, right? So it's another example of a virtual region at work. So the concept of a virtual region is reshaping urban planning and regional development as economic interactions are no longer limited by geography. And this has implications for policymaking, taxation also, and governance as traditional territorial boundaries are being redefined by digital transformation. So we can go to the a continuation of that region as network. Okay. So it says there region as network, the model for growth polygons. So it's the growth polygon model. The network model of regions challenges traditional hierarchical and market-based approaches by emphasizing interconnectedness, collaboration, and flexibility. Unlike centralized planning, network-based regional development relies on self-organizing, collaborative, and non-hierarchical structures, making it more adaptable to modern economic and social dynamics. So why is it self-organizing networks? Because in a self-organizing system, regional structures evolve organically rather than being externally imposed. So this means that relationships between cities, firms, and institutions develop naturally based on shared goals, economic ties, and mutual interests. Unlike rigid top-down models, networked regions allow for bottom-up participation where local actors share their own development. Number two, it says collaborative. So collaborative networks. Collaboration is a key principle of the network model. Traditional economic models often emphasize competition, but network regions seek to balance competition with cooperation by promoting or fostering strategic alliances, trust building, and shared resources. Firms and localities within a regional network create synergies that enhance their collective economic strength. So this approach is particularly relevant in innovation clusters where firms share research, technologies, and supply chains rather than working in isolation. Then the third one there is non-hierarchical networks. Unlike traditional hierarchical governance where decision-making is centralized, network regions operate through the centralized and horizontal relationships. This allows multiple stakeholders, including local governments, businesses, and civil society, to have a voice in shaping regional development. So non-hierarchical structures ensure that power is distributed rather than concentrated, leading to more resilient and inclusive regional governance. So the growth polygon model illustrated in the diagram reflects a decentralized yet interconnected system where multiple nodes, I'm referring to the cities, businesses, or institutions, interact dynamically. And this model is increasingly relevant in a globalized world where regions compete and cooperate across national boundaries, forming cross-border economic zones, technology hubs, and trade corridors. So we can go to the continuation. So we have go to the next slide. 4 and 5. So that's still region as network. Flexible, okay. Uh, it extends to the the growth polygon model extends the concept of regional networks by emphasizing adaptability and dynamic linkages between different actors, places, and institutions. So the principles of flexibility and topological spatiality further reinforce the evolving nature of regional interaction. So number four there, unlike traditional regions with fixed boundaries and stable interactions, network regions are highly dynamic. The participants in a regional network can enter or exit, and the structure of the network itself can be periodically restructured based on changing economic conditions. What else? New technological advancement or shifts in global trends. So this flexibility allows open information exchange and continuous learning, which enhances the adaptability of firms and institutions operating within the region. So a key advantage of flexible networks is their ability to respond to disruptions, whether economic downturns, policy changes, or technological advancements by reconfiguring partnerships and collaborations. So this makes networked regions more resilient to external shocks compared to rigid hierarchical regional models. Number five is topological spatiality. So it's breaking traditional boundaries um, because this means that proximity in network interactions does not necessarily require physical closeness, or instead networks form through linkages between previously disconnected participants, constructing new relationships and mutual dependencies. So for example, global production networks um, link firms from different parts of the world in integrated supply chains. So I mentioned about Silicon Valley earlier. So and also what else? Innovation districts or startup ecosystems, they operate based on knowledge sharing and investment linkages rather than simple geographical proximity, and a lot more. I'm just yeah, I'm just thinking about Silicon Valley tonight, but I had other formations in mind early on, but I forgot. So anyway, I'll be coming up with, we can discuss it anyway. This is not yet a really, an in-depth discussion or lecture, but we should have more, okay? But just to make sure that we're all understanding about what's a region, what are the types of region, what are those region other than uh administrative regions. So now well, growth polygon model suggests that regional development strategies should focus on fostering connectivity, collaboration, adaptability. Okay, so I think I'm done with that, and we can proceed to, we can now share the TOS. Okay. What about the slide? So, okay. Yeah, what did you ask about the slide earlier? So, is it not, was it not moving earlier?
Okay na po, ma'am.
Okay.
Bago
Yeah,
naman.
hindi ko kasi nakikita kanina sa chat box, but okay, let's go and prepare for a 100 questions. No, I'm just joking. It's Valentine's, so I'm supposed to be more relevant tonight by preparing 14 questions, but I can't help it. It's still more than that. So, yeah. So we're now on the last part, which is 35%. So the subject is plan implementation. Okay, after history and theory, and then the processes. And then, so how can we implement the plan and what are the legal, what are the laws involved, and then how you administer the plan in environmental planning. So that's the content of this one, 35%. So still the highest is 45%. That's the processes, right? The processes. Then 20% history and theory. But of course, if you ask me, so which should we focus on? All. So my answer is all. You cannot pass if you unfocus or you focus less on one subject area. All right. So still the Bloom's taxonomy, and letter A. Okay. So A, legal foundations of environmental planning. And then I wonder why three. So this is not my fault. Okay. Uh, this is the actual TOS that you're seeing from the PRB of environmental planning. So why number three? Can you answer me? Or nagkamali ba sila? Or hindi? So anyway, sa typing siguro. So it's supposed to be one, right? Because it's another subject area. So, saglit lang. Jen, how many questions have we prepared?
30 po.
Hmm,
30.
30. Let's wait. So what are these key or milestones, laws and rules and regulations of socioeconomic planning? And then we have 1.1, interpret the socio-cultural implications of historical and cultural heritage laws. So we are mostly laws here. Yeah, I think, yeah, I'm not sure is if this is the one being considered being the killer subject. I'm not sure. Um, just a moment, Jen. I think I lost my, just a moment. So it should be, okay. So 35%, it covers, I mentioned earlier, application of environmental planning principles in real world scenarios. So, focusing on legal, administrative, and governance frameworks that guide the implementation of plans. And what are these? So, legal foundations. Okay. It includes laws, rules, and regulations relevant to environmental and land use planning. It also covers legal instruments, planning mandates, and regulatory frameworks at national and local levels. Then under plan implementation, it should address or this plan implementation is an area which addresses strategies for executing CLUPs, CDPs, and other planning documents. It also examines the role of government agencies, LGUs, and private sector involvement in implementation. And then under plan administration and governance, it discusses institutional mechanisms for planning, including decision-making structures and compliance monitoring, and also explores financial mechanisms, budgeting, and funding sources for implementing development projects. So most of those who perform very well in this subject area are those from LGUs. So it's your leverage. Okay? And among those key topics are understanding the legal framework that governs environmental planning. What are these? The Local Government Code, the Urban Development and Housing Act, RA 7279, then the Climate Change Act, RA 9729. Yeah, and the Management Act, the RRMA, RA 10121. Um, so what do we need to study here? We need to evaluate different implementation strategies, financing schemes, and administrative tools. Okay, that ensure the success of planning initiatives. And also, we should not forget that up to apply monitoring and evaluation or M&E techniques to measure the effectiveness of plans. So it's when we deal with M&E, it means that how to measure the effectiveness of plans, of the strategies, all right? And all those interventions. So this subject area is important for environmental planners as it ensures they're well versed in the regulatory and governance aspects of planning, and it also equips you aspirants with the necessary skills to oversee and facilitate plan execution in various settings. So the premise here is, all right, you're ready to implement, you're ready to administer, plan, apply the legal frameworks. All right, so in 1.1, okay, interpret the social cultural implications of historical and cultural heritage laws. Okay, it's very specific, and policies in environmental planning. Key milestones. But all under number 3. So, okay. It should we should focus on how historical and cultural heritage laws impact environmental planning. It requires environmental planners to analyze the implications of heritage conservation, sustainable land use, and urban development while considering historical and cultural context. So planners must balance modernization with cultural preservation, ensuring that policies reflect both development needs and heritage protection. So there are key laws and policies on cultural heritage in environmental planning. Number one, we have the National Cultural Heritage Act of 2009. That's RA 10066. So regarding this act, it talks about protection of cultural properties, historic sites, and build heritage. It also require or it establishes cultural mapping as a planning tool. Under this law, it also strengthens the role of LGUs in heritage conservation. Then another law is the law creating the National Commission for Culture and the Arts, the NCCA, or Republic Act 7356. We will have the more in-depth discussions later on this. So because I need to show you some slides on this specific laws, but just to provide you overview of the table of specifications under this subject area. All right, so NCCA, okay, it provides for the governance of cultural heritage and arts in the Philippines. Also, RA 7356, which is the NCCA, it coordinates policies and programs for cultural preservation. Then under RA 166, it's the Intellectual Property Code of the Philippines. Yeah, it also, what else? UNESCO also. mm, UNESCO. So, United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization conventions. It includes World Heritage Site designations and international preservation standards. So we should know, we should learn about uh, what are what are the UNESCO sites in the Philippines? Where are they? And how many UNESCO sites do we have? Then, of course, we have the local government code that empowers LGUs to manage and integrate cultural heritage in land use plans. So all about cultural heritage here. Um, hmm, sorry about that. And the IPRA, right? So let's see. Is it about, yeah, cultural implications of historical and cultural heritage? Then, so there would be some questions here later. And then, hmm, 1.2. Okay. So what's 1.2? It's apply the policies and guidelines on housing project developments. Okay, housing. As prescribed by related housing laws. So, what do you mean by this one? Housing development in Philippines is governed by a range of policies, regulations, and legal frameworks that aim to ensure affordable, sustainable, and equitable housing for different social sectors. So also environmental planners must be well versed in these laws, particularly in their application to land use planning, project approvals, regulatory compliance, and many more. And so housing project developments must align also with urban development policies, socialized housing laws, and environmental sustainability guidelines to address issues such as housing backlogs, informal settlements, and climate resilience, and many more. So what are the primary laws that govern housing developments? Also, I mentioned also earlier, that's UDHA, okay, Urban Development and Housing Act of 1992, that's RA 7279, that establishes guidelines for socialized housing land use for housing projects and balanced housing compliance for developers. So we have the RA 11201, that's the DSUD Act, okay, Department of Housing of Human Settlements and Urban Development Act, that consolidate all housing and urban development functions under DSUD. Then we also have yeah, balanced housing development program, and then that amended RA 7279, that's RA 10884, requiring private developers to allocate a portion of their projects for socialized housing. Uh, so also again, local government code will be leveraged here again on this 1.2. And then we have the National Building Code that provides technical and safety regulations for all residential construction because it's about housing. So that's RA 6541, is it correct? Then the EIA, okay, EIA system, PD 1586, that requires housing projects to undergo environmental assessment before approval, especially for project category A. So that's environmentally critical projects, and then category B, environmentally critical areas, and so forth and so on. Uh, there are like 4 to 5 categories. So Then BP 220, standards for economic and socialized housing projects, that establishes minimum design and development standards for affordable housing. So these laws set the policy framework for housing development, ensuring that projects are accessible, resilient, aligned with national and local planning objectives. So we can go to 1.3, appraise local and regional plans on their harmonization with the Medium-Term Philippine Development Plan, or the MTPDP. So the MTPDP is the government's strategic economic blueprint. All right, typically covering a 6-year period aligned with the term of the president. So it guides national development priorities, sectoral strategies, and policy interventions, integrating economic growth with sustainable development and social inclusion. So the harmonization of local and regional plans with the MTPDP ensures that national objectives are effectively translated into provincial, city, and municipal planning efforts. So local and regional planning bodies also are included under this 1.3, particularly regional development councils, or RDCs, and local development councils, or LDCs. They all play a crucial role in aligning sectoral and spatial development plans with MTPDP targets. So planners must ensure that CLUPs, CDPs, and RPFPs, okay, regional physical frameworks align with the broader MTPDP objectives. I forgot the uh, PDPFP, okay, Provincial Development and Physical Framework Plan in provinces. So they need to all this all these plans that I mentioned, they should align with the broader MTPDP objectives to optimize public investment, infrastructure projects, and sustainable growth strategies. So there are key aspects of harmonization. They include ensuring that local economic, social, and environmental policies complement national goals. And number two, it should include, or it should integrate, disaster resilience, climate adaptation, and inclusive urban growth in development plans. And then also strengthening intergovernmental coordination through the RDCs, NEDA, LGUs, and many more, especially in the national government agency side. And then identifying also priority investment areas based on public investment program, or the PIP, and the 3-year rolling infrastructure program. So, then we have 1.4. Still under. Okay, 1.4. It's long. So anyway, it's Muse talking. So I hope you be patient, so that I will be more patient. Okay. So because everything I say here, it will come out in your mock exams tonight. So apply important laws governing natural resources and environmental protection with subnational planning. So environmental protection and natural resource management, they're all integral to subnational planning, as they ensure national development, ecological balance, and resilience against environmental degradation. So local government units play a critical role in implementing environmental laws through land use planning, zoning regulations, resource conservation program, and DRR strategies. So there are several key environmental laws that provide legal framework for integrating environmental sustainability into subnational planning. And we have in the earlier batch in this group, okay, they're still here. You already, I think I already discussed on the Philippine environmental policy. So I always start that with PD 1151, which is the Philippine environmental policy that requires, which requires that all policies and projects consider their impact on the environment. So I arranged my lecture on the legal framework on on this 1.4 by yeah, it's arranged still based on history. Okay, so it start from, how do you call that? I forgot the term. Yeah, I forgot the term about that. But anyway, hmm. So, and then after 1151, it's PD 1586. It's about environmental impact statement system that mandates environmental compliance certificates, ECCs for environmental critical projects. Then, of course, RA, who does not know, who's not familiar with RA 9003, which is the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act of 2000, which requires LGUs to develop and enforce waste management plans. Then we also have RA 9275, Philippine Clean Air Act, no, Philippine Clean Water Act of 2004 that regulates water quality and wastewater discharge. Then we have the RA 8749, the Philippine Clean Air Act of 1999, that sets air quality standards and emissions control mechanisms. Then we also have RA 7586. It's quite famous, right? It's something that everyone should know about, NIPAS Act, because we already have the e-NIPAS extended, or so, NIPAS Act of 1992 as amended by RA 11038. It protects national parks, biodiversity reserves, and ecologically significant areas. Then, RA 10121, the DRR Act, okay, Philippine Disaster Risk Reduction Management Act of 2010, that integrates disaster risk reduction strategies into local planning. And then, local code again is there. And then the Climate Change Act. So 1 there is no 1.6, right? There's no 1.6. Okay. 1.5, the last one here. And the last one also for tonight. So assess important laws governing natural resources and environmental protection with, okay, continue there, with subnational planning. Okay. Um, so the assessment of laws governing natural resources and environmental protection involves evaluating their effectiveness, implementation challenges, and legal implications in national, regional, and local planning. These laws serve as the legal foundation for sustainable land use conservation, pollution control, and climate change adaptation. So environmental planners must critically analyze. So that's why it's there in the TOS, because we must critically analyze whether these laws effectively balance economic development with environmental sustainability. And this includes reviewing, number one, effectiveness of implementation. So are the laws being enforced adequately? And then, are there loopholes that hinder environmental protection? Are LGUs, businesses, and communities adhering to these laws? Or are these laws effectively integrated into land use and development plans? So the major laws that guide this assessment include the Philippine Environmental Code, so the PD 1152, that it's comprehensive environmental legislation covering air, water, land, and waste management, and Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, ESWM Act, and then the NIPAS Act, as amended by RA 11038. It used to be RA 7586, and then eNIPAS is RA 11038. Then the Mining Act also of 1995, RA 7942, that regulates mining operations and environmental impact mitigation. Then the Climate Change Act, and then the RRM. Okay. So I think we are okay, and it's 10:35. Jen, I think you can take it away. And so Jen will again share, post the link on the chat box and answer it. 30, is it 30 items, Jen?
Yes po.
15 minutes, okay? For those who cannot finish, just continue, okay? Don't lose hope. You need to train,
Kuhanin ko lang yung link, ma'am.
okay? You need to train yourselves